Hello and welcome to this tutorial for a layered bubble vase. This is a vase I designed while studying design at university. I specialised in ceramics but also wanted to incorporate SOLIDWORKS into how I designed, modelled and produced my work. So for this tutorial I'll take you through the process of how I modelled the vase and how it was prepared for laser cutting. The guide vase and bubble parts used for this tutorial are available to download from the SOLIDWORKS blog if you wish to follow this tutorial and create your own vase. Through this tutorial I will show you how I used an assembly to create a part file and how the combine tool and split feature were used to create separate DXF files for laser cutting. So to begin, I'm just going to show you the parts that we will be modelling with. Here we have the guide vase which will be revolved. Here we have the guide vase which was revolved with 5mm layers. If I go into the sketch here, you can see my guide sketch. I used the linear sketch pattern to create 5mm spaced lines. The profile of the vase was also a guide sketch. These were then used to create this step-like profile. I've applied an appearance to the vase to make it easier to see where the bubbles are being placed when we're creating the assembly. And on the right side here, I have one of the bubble part models that were also modelled with 5mm layers. There are 6 different sized bubbles in total that I'll be using in the assembly. All of the layers are 5mm as I used 5mm sheets of Perspex to create the final model of the vase for plaster moulding. So we're going to start the assembly with this vase. I may speed up part of this tutorial where I'm either mating or rearranging parts. So I'm just going to drop this in. So from here I'm going to start inserting the bubble part components. I'm going to start with the larger 2 bubbles. And I'm going to check the keep visible icon here. This is so that I can drop in multiples of the parts or select which order I want to put them in. Select the larger bubble first. I'm just going to drop 5 or 6 around the bottom, like that, and then a couple of the 19 layer bubbles. Now for this you can try and copy what I'm doing, but it's probably best that you try and create your own type of vase. Feel free to try all different size bubbles, but for this I started with the larger bubbles at the bottom and moved to smaller ones at the top. So what I do is just drag the bubbles into the body of the guide vase, like this. Use the different views to see exactly where I'm placing them. For this they don't need to be level with the vase as we'll be mating them later on. But what I don't do is have them level with the bottom, as this will be the base of the vase. So I just have them on the first, second or even third layer of the guide vase. Just going to drag them in. You can always delete a bubble if you think you have too many. But I think I ended up adding 35 bubbles to my final design in total, so quite a lot of bubbles. So I'm going to do this as quickly as I can, so it will be quite rough. Feel free to play around with yours until you're happy. For creating this model for moulding, it was important that I didn't have too much of a bubble poking out, otherwise the mould would have undercuts. So I normally drag this in as much as I can so that there's less than half of a circle. So from this point, before I insert any more bubbles, I'm going to start mating the bubbles onto the guide vase. To do this, I just select one of the faces and the mate icon and select the face I want to mate it onto. This should mate coincident. Now this won't fully define the bubble, but what we can do is once we're happy with the final position, we will fix them into place. So just do the same for the rest of the bubbles. But what you want to ensure is that you don't mate bubbles onto bubbles. So check undo and make sure that the face of the guide vase is selected. From here, I'm just going to keep inserting other sized bubbles and putting them into the vase until I'm happy with all of the positions. So for this, I do try to cover as much of the guide vase as I can, but I also try to ensure that I don't hide the neck of the vase. So make sure that you just drag any of these bubbles further in so we don't hide that. Don't forget to mate as you go along. I've had to speed up quite a few sections of this tutorial, just where I'm either moving or adding bubbles or mating bubbles onto the vase. Otherwise this tutorial could be almost an hour long of me just moving bubbles, so this just saves on some time. Select Other is a great tool to use if you can't see the faces of the guide vase. Finally, I'm going to insert some of the smaller layered bubbles. Then I'm going to make these into place too. Once I'm happy with the position of all the bubbles, I can fix all of those into place by selecting them all, right click and fix. This ensures that the assembly is fully defined. Now from here, I can save the assembly. And then save it as a part using File, Save As, and changing the file type to part. Opening that part, you'll see here all of those bubble parts and vase come in as solid bodies, which are all individual right now. So we're going to use the Combine tool. Operation type on Add, Control A on your keyboard, and check OK to combine them all into one solid body. Now to send all of these out as DXF files, I'm going to use the Split tool, but first I need a sketch. So selecting the front plane and sketch, I'm going to use the midpoint line and hover onto this edge here in the centre, 100mm. I'm going to fully define that first. 200mm dimension, and just drag that away. Select it and select this edge and add a collinear relation. Just drag and drop that to ensure that it's coincident like that. With it fully defined, I can select it and use the linear sketch pattern tool. Change the direction to 90 degrees like this, and the distance here by 5mm for those 5mm layers. For this I need 44 lines to split this up, and check OK. Add a smart dimension between these two lines here to fully define, and then use Features, Split, and the trim tool should select this sketch here, and I can just select Cut Part, and all of these will become separate layers like this. Now we want to check this little scissors icon here for all the resulting bodies and ensure that Consume Cut Bodies is unchecked because we want to keep them all, and check OK. Go to hide this sketch, Now from here we will have 45 separate sliced pieces, which we can see here. And to get the DXFs, we select one of the faces here and go to File, Save As, and change the file type to DXF. You don't need to change the name, you can just check Save. And in the export options, we have faces, loops, and edges, which is correct. Entities to export, we have this face, but we need all of these faces. So what we're going to do is start selecting them all. Just ensure you select one face for each layer and not an underside and a top side. And I'll just speed this up. And do that all the way to the bottom face. Once they're all selected, in the export options you can select single file, but if I select OK on this, all of the DXFs will be sent out layered like this, which would not be useful for creating a laser cutting file. So just check Cancel and select Separate Files. All the individual DXFs will go out separately like this. You can just preview all of them if you want to. So from here I'm going to click Save, and I will have all of my DXFs exported and ready to laser cut the final model. With my finished model, the DXF files that were sent out were used to laser cut the Perspex. These Perspex layers were then glued together to create a model I could use for plaster moulding. The plaster mould was then slip cast with liquid clay to create the ceramic piece for firing in the kiln. Now if I wanted to, from here, I could combine all of the parts back up together. And I can select shell with the top face of this. I'm just going to do 1 mil to keep it really simple, so I don't want to have to do any multi-thickness settings. And check OK. And that shells out the model, and you can see this best when I turn on the section view. It just gives me a little idea of how the piece will look once it's been slip cast. Here is a little exploded view animation I created using a motion study, which was exported into SOLIDWORKS Visualize and rendered into a movie animation. I would love to see any vase shapes you create, so please feel free to share on the SOLIDWORKS blog or social media platforms. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for watching.